yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it is Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. And this is, I guess, part 2 of our SEC prospect breakdown. Part 1 ended up just being the quarterbacks because there was a lot to discuss. And my guy Emory got a lot of attention with his comment about Dre'lyn Green being the number 1 pro prospect in the SEC, the quarterback from Arkansas. I do want to ask you, Emory, in a moment here about the fallout from that. I don't mean that negatively, just kind of the attention that it got, because I saw there was a bunch. I did see where Nate Tice, whose dad coached Randall Cunningham, said, man, he does look a lot like Randall Cunningham, which is awesome. My, as I said last week, my favorite player ever. Emory, of course, is the great Emory Hunt. He's at F-Ball Game Plan on Twitter. Former Division I running back. Now he's just the czar of the playbook, and he's got the T-shirt on today to prove it. You can check it out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. He actually first kind of gained popularity with his Football Game Plan page on YouTube. Very, very popular. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. Those of you that are loyal listeners know I'm a huge proponent of that. I actually want to get into, we have two things to get into based on last week's show, Emory, before we get into the rest of the top prospects in the SEC. One of which is that we were just on here talking about quarterbacks like Lenora Sellers that are super muscular and ripped and all those things. And I think it was like later that day or the next day, it came out that Will Levis is getting shoulder surgery and being shut down for the season. The former Penn State and Kentucky quarterback, who was a high second-round pick, the Titans starter last year in and out of the lineup, was really up and down, more down than up as a player last year. It's interesting, Emory, because I do feel like there's something to that in the sense that if you look at like the best quarterbacks, there's sort of a dad bod characteristic to, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I don't know. I mean, Josh Allen, I don't think he has a dad bod, but I haven't really seen it, to be honest with you. And Lamar, I'm sure Lamar is shredded, but the point is even if Lamar is shredded, Emory, he's not thick. You know what I mean? He's not like muscle bound, if you will. And I'm not saying these other guys are, but it was interesting timing on the Levis news.
And to go even further, look at the video that came out before Colts started their camp. Anthony Richardson got on the podium, looked significantly smaller, and talked about losing weight. He said he's down to about 240 now, which we talked about. When you're carrying so much muscle, especially in your shoulder, it's hard to get that rotation. And then you subsequently see clips from him in training camp throwing the ball, and it's the short stuff that's now coming out fluid and a little bit more with accuracy. So there is something to it, man, because, he stayed injured. Levis dealt with a lot of injuries. So maybe we're on to something, and maybe guys can, take from this, like, hey, man, maybe I don't have to, maybe I could skip bench press incline day. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you don't have to be as muscular. I think that was the big takeaway I had.
It's more important, we talked about this last week, it's more important to have fluidity, mobility, and flexibility in your shoulder joints than it is to have big, strong, muscular shoulders or a big, strong, muscular chest. The bigger your pecs are, that doesn't help you throw a ball better at all. Not at all. And I think we've seen a number of examples, which we talked about last week. And then you're right. I mean, it was like right after we recorded the show, you get the Levis news and the Anthony Richardson news. I'm curious, Emory, since I know you talked to a lot of people in the league, and obviously I saw you went on social media at F-Ball Game Plan, a bunch of shows last week. What have you kind of heard about, your Taylon Green comments? Because certainly you hear a lot about Nussmeier, Arch Manning, and Sellers. You're the first one that kind of, put your stake in the ground and said, I'm going with Taylon Green as the number one prospect in the SEC.
Funny, Ross, after the show, I heard from multiple scouts, phone calls. It's like, hey, man, you actually nailed the Taylon Green comparison. We just want to see a little bit more growth and consistency from him, but you can't deny the look, the athleticism, and what he put on tape last year. Now, they also said, I don't agree with you about, this player or that player, but this one, you nailed. And I was like, all right. So it was like, yeah, he's somebody we've definitely been tracking. And when I fleshed out my thoughts completely, folks really understood that what I said wasn't that wild of a take. Because I said, listen, if we're talking about the guys that are seniors and more than likely are going to come out, that list of SEC quarterbacks is probably 3. Green, Sellers, and Nussmeier. We mentioned John Mateer, but he still may go back, and Arch is Arch. And so when you really just nail it down to the 3 guys, it's those 3. And so if I had them ranked how I had them ranked, that's not as wild of a take as thinking like, oh, well, why you didn't say Arch? Why you didn't include John Mateer? Why you didn't include this guy who's a redshirt sophomore? Like, man, we just don't know yet. So why focus on that? And I know Sellers is a redshirt sophomore, but it seems like he's more inclined to come out as opposed to anyone else.
Yeah, and listen, we talked about it last week. You got a pretty darn good track record of being ahead of the game on these guys and seeing it before other people do. And it's always fun. I know this much. Maybe I'm just selfish because I like this show, because I like you. I hope Taylon Green lights it up this year. Like I nothing will give me more joy than watching Taylon Green highlights this year, so that Jack, our producer, can repost the clip of you having him as the number one prospect, which is awesome. All right, there are other positions in the SEC, and there are other prospects in the SEC. And we got to start with one of the biggest dudes I've ever seen. And I've been around him multiple times. His true freshman year, I called the Alabama-Ole Miss game, and I saw this young man. And then last summer, not this summer, but the summer before, I saw him at the O-Line Masterminds event, walking around with Tyler Booker. By the way, when I did the Alabama-Ole Miss game, Emory, they had J.C. Latham, Tyler Booker, and Kadyn Proctor. And those guys were all walking out to the field together. And I remember sitting there thinking, I started a bunch of games in the NFL. I don't know if I could start for Alabama. I mean, look at these guys. Look at these monsters. Absolute monsters. And Proctor is the biggest of the bunch. There are videos of him, Emory, where he can move people against their will. I mean, he's just that type of physical marvel. You've obviously studied him. What do you think?
I agree, man. He's definitely a people mover on both ends of offense. And like, if he gets his hands on you, rep over, like you're not slipping his block. You're not. The concern I have is, and remember how Aaron Gibson was as a prospect coming out of Wisconsin, like a big, large mammoth of an offensive lineman, and sticking with our point of carrying too much weight. I kind of want to see him drop a little bit once he gets to, the combine pro day circuit, because I don't like guys carrying that much weight in today's game. And so I feel like that could be a, kind of limit where he can go in terms of positions he can play. You know what I'm saying? And so, because he has good movement skills when he's climbing to the next level, but he could have even better movement skills if he goes from 370 to 350, right? And I think that's the goal for him once the season's over, because he's clearly a dominant blocker. and we've seen him just dominate consistently. I just want to see him drop some weight as a projection moving forward.
I don't know what they list him at. I don't know how much he really weighs. I mean, he's easily over 350. Easily over 350. And I agree, Emory, 100%. Whatever he gains in power for every pound over 340, I'd say he is, whatever he gains in power, it's not worth how it affects his quickness and lateral agility and movement skills, right? He's plenty powerful at 335, 340, 345. When you start to get over 350, then he's going to really get challenged by these edge rushers and these guys with elite change of direction, right? So I don't care how athletic you are, when you're that big, it's hard to change directions. So when you're going against Kadyn Proctor, what do? You do speed up the field, then come back inside. Or you fake inside, then go around. Think Micah Parsons, okay? Proctor would be better served to lose some weight. Totally agree on that. You know, Proctor has been a star the last couple years. This other guy, as a true freshman, lit it up, Emory. And then the next year, they switched his position, and we're not really sure what he is now. How did Harold Perkins go from an edge rusher to maybe a safety? What is going on there?
Bro, that might be the most disappointing thing in college football history, right? It's almost like, because when he burst onto the scene, you were like, oh, you was thinking Micah Parsons, right? You think like, oh man, this is easy. Like, you got Micah Parsons in the NFL, and this is like the next Micah Parsons. He compares favorably, undersized, but he can get to the quarterback. Game-changing plays. You think about Arkansas game, he literally won that game for them. And then you just kind of rubber stamp going into next year, like, okay, so they got Micah Parsons rushing the edge. Now they're going to build around, and then they move him to like personal protectors. Like, bro, what are y'all doing? And then now he's playing a whole new position. So it'll be interesting to see how he does this year, playing sort of that hybrid safety role, because in essence, watching his high school film, he literally could play any position, skill position wise, on defense and on offense. So he does have the athleticism. It's just frustrating to see him go from, man, this dude is going to be a dominant edge guy, to now we have to really see and figure out what he can do at the next level. But I will say this, based on what they were trying to do with Landon Collins, what they have currently done with Jamal Adams, what they sort of did with Deion Buchanan, Perkins can be that guy, kind of that bridge between first, second, and third level, right? So he could rush the passer, so he could be a very good blitzer. He has the athleticism to cover in the short zone, cover man with tight ends and some backs, and he has comfortability on his feet. So it makes sense. Now, all jokes aside, it does make sense to kind of have him be a roamer, but to have this guy kind of play that safety hybrid third nickel type defender, I think this is going to help round out his game, in my opinion.
Don't go anywhere. Got to pay some bills real quick. Let's go over some simple math here. Beer is good. Labatt Blue Light is especially good. Free stuff, really, really good. Thanks to my friends at Labatt, they have combined all of these things. It's called Buy Beer, Get Gear. All you need to do is go to rewards.labattusa.com. If you get nothing else from this episode, go to rewards.labattusa.com. Try to get the fridge. Try to get the cooler backpack, which I've been waiting for my whole life. Buy beer, get gear, rewards.labattusa.com. Let's get to a cornerback from Tennessee, Jermod McCoy.
Ball skills, ball skills, ball skills, ball skills, and ball awareness. Like, he doesn't panic when the ball is in the air. Sometimes he may get a little handsy, like start to grab a little bit, but then he just plays through the football, right? And is able to do just that on a consistent basis, or in some cases come away with the football. So I think he can play man press, and also kind of stay back and play in phase rather well, because he's not overly panicky, but he does get a little handsy at the top of the route, but he does a great job in playing the ball.
How does he compare, Emory, to Damani Jackson, the corner from Bama?
I think Jackson has a little bit more fluidity, and just a more smoother athlete. Jackson, I feel like, can also play all the things that we talked about with McCoy, but also probably can excel a little bit better in zone. Playing off coverage and driving on the football. I think the fluidity sort of helps in that. This was a 5-star player, and when we're talking about 5-star, we're easily talking about his athleticism and how he measures up to being able to play right away, which he did at USC. And I thought he had a solid campaign at Bama. He's another one that has good instincts and ball skills as well.
It's not often that we have a Vanderbilt guy on the list when you've got like your top 10 prospects in the SEC. I almost had to check twice and 3 times. Eli Stowers, a tight end from Vandy.
Might be the best tight end in the country, if we're being honest. And he had an opportunity to go to the league last year, but he came back, which is why I'm high on Vandy. Their win total, I think, is at 6.5 or something like that. I'm clearly taking it over because they have America's quarterback in Diego Pavia, and they have a pro prospect at tight end in Stowers, who is fluid in and out of his breaks. He does a great job in knowing when to play big, but he runs routes like a receiver. Think Darren Waller type fluidity. And I know Waller was a receiver at Georgia Tech when they were running the option, and then he transitioned into a tight end years into the NFL. But that's the type of fluidity that Stowers has, and is their number one option in the passing game.
I love watching that Pavia guy play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering where he'll end up after school. He's one of those guys that there are certain guys they should just let be a college quarterback forever. Like, let him get 10 years at NIL, because I don't know about the NFL. And for these guys, like, they get more in college than they would in the CFL or UFL. Didn't he try to? Was it for this year, or was he trying for another year to get even another year of
for this
eligibility?
year?
And he got it.
He got it. Yep.
Okay. I'm actually a little surprised if he got it that he stayed at Vandy. I would have thought he could have gone somewhere else for even more money.
Well, maybe he understands where his bread is buttered, right? And I said this. I remember I said this about Dylan Gabriel, and I didn't want it to be a knock. I don't want it to be a knock for Pavia either. He would be an outstanding CFL quarterback. Think Jeremiah Masoli, right? His type of play and game translates over there significantly well, and he'll get that full opportunity to showcase his talent more so than trying to be some QB4 on an NFL roster in May.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. All right, let's get to some running backs. We know Emory loves his running backs. Is this right, Emory, that you only have running backs from 2 different schools, but you have multiple running backs at both of those schools? So for Bama, you have Jam Miller and Dre'lyn Washington?
Yes, and Jam Miller, one cut downhill explosive. He got a great first step quickness and burst, and he would be great in a gap scheme, because once he cuts off his block, boom, he's gone, right? And so I like that about his game. Dre'lyn Washington, Ross, again, if we just were able to document the amount of Raging Cajuns that we have that have transferred out, that have gone to Power 5 programs, we would be a Power 5 program already, right? Dre'lyn Washington is a home run waiting to happen. He is so fluid. He's so twitchy. Reminds me so much of Chase Edmonds, who's doing a fantastic job, by the way, on television. Like, he has transitioned to an analyst with Good Morning Football. He's doing a phenomenal job, right? And I remember seeing his first game at Fordham when they played St. Francis, and he ran for 2-something. And so Dre'lyn Washington reminds me so much of Chase Edmonds.
Chase Edmonds grew up like 3 minutes that way from where I am right now. And he ended up getting offered by more people like Nova and stuff, but it was too late. He'd already decided Fordham was like the first people that really liked him. All right, what about the running backs at Texas A&M, Emory? Le'Veon Moss, E.J. Smith, and Amari Daniels. Please tell me we're not old enough that Moss was named after Le'Veon Bell. Please tell me
Right.
that math doesn't work, right?
Right. There's only 2 Le'Veons I know, right?
Yeah, they both are good running backs.
Right. So I would say this is probably on par. This was shocking to me though, Ross, when I was grading running backs over the summer and I got to A&M and I'm looking at the depth chart. I'm like, I remember E.J. Smith, Emmitt Smith's son at Stanford, and I'm, grading what he did at Stanford, then I'm grading what he did and I'm like, he got some game with him. Like, this is someone that could be a third running back in a rotation, like a Hassan Haskins, right? So I was like, he's kind of good. I got to Daniels. I'm like, oh, Daniels kind of reminds me of Devonta Freeman. Like, this dude has some burst and some juice with him, and he's kind of vying for second and third because they have Owens that's coming back from injury, Reuben Owens, but also Moss, big smooth, right? So he's someone that just smooth, fluid, understands the run game, always making the right cuts, great hands as a receiver. So I thought, like, man, A&M, this looks like the A&M we grew up watching, Ross, where the wrecking crew on defense and whoever was dotting that I on offense was the man. Well, they got a stable of guys that could dot the I at this A&M, this era of A&M football.
Quentin Coriat, Sam Adams, Greg Hill. These are some of the A&M guys that come to my mind when I think about them. All right, what about some receivers in the SEC? Casey Concepcion from A&M and Zachariah Branch from Georgia.
Concepcion is someone I was a big fan of when he was at NC State. I was like, man, you just got to find ways to get him the football. Sometimes you got him involved in a run game. They threw him, bubbles or got him deep down the field. Anytime NC State needed a big play, he was kind of the guy who made it. He was getting the party started. And him transferring to A&M to go along with his run game, A&M is going to be fun to watch this year if Marcel Reed takes the next step forward at quarterback. But Casey Concepcion kind of fits what they had in a bunch of other guys, right? Guys that can kind of do a little bit of both. There was a time where you kind of thought, what's the running back for the Dolphins?
H.N.?
Yeah, is H.N. a receiver or a running back? That's kind of what you get with Casey Concepcion. It's like some days you may watch him and think like, man, is he a running back or a receiver? But he makes plays, and I like the fact that he does make plays. And Branch burst onto the scene at USC. He looked like the R.J. Sowers of the world back when USC had like speed. Got the receivers had the black spats and like, I know that boy could fly. And he was that guy. Didn't just kind of was inconsistent last year. And I'm glad he's coming now to a situation where he's going to be their best receiver at Georgia. He's going to get the football, and he's going to remind folks why he's a talented return specialist and also a receiver.
Yeah, he burst on the scene as a true freshman, flying all over the place, making plays.
Right. And all I think about is Gus Johnson, and you know what I'm saying, and Tim Brando. Like, anytime Branch made a big play, one of those two guys was on the call.
All right, what about, let's get an Auburn guy in here. O-lineman, Izavion Miller.
No one's talking about him, Ross. I wrote his name down when I was grading defensive players last year, and I watched the Auburn game, and I'm like, yo, this dude on the right side busting ass. Like, he is, like, who is this? I thought, so I'm looking, and quickly I wrote down the number, but I wrote down the wrong number because I'm looking for the number on the depth chart. I'm like, oh, he must have transferred, or he must have been a senior. And then I go back and watch the film again. I'm like, oh, no, it's this number. And it was him. And I don't know if he's going to start this year because I know they brought in some transfers, but he's one of these guys that is going to end up probably playing in, the Tropical Bowl and end up being drafted from there. And it's like, man, this was a guy that was a Power 5 guy, offensive lineman, good footwork, good technique, hands stay inside, gets good movement when he's blocking, trying to, reach guys. He was tremendous to watch when I'm watching a defensive guy play. And I'm like, man, this dude's really good, man. Auburn has them another one.
Texas is supposed to have a really, really good team, Emory. And last week we talked about Arch Manning. But on the defensive side, they got a heck of a linebacker in Anthony Hill.
And he plays south as well as he does north and east and west. Good athlete, can blitz, sees what he hits, wants to tackle, good enough awareness to where he's going to make the play in the passing game that comes his way. He's not one of these linebackers who's going to drop an opportunity to turn the ball over. And he closes on the football and the ball carrier with great intentions and does a great job in wrapping up. And so I think he's probably closer to LB1. And again, I'm saying this like it could be hot takey because I hadn't seen all linebackers, but I like how he plays enough to where he's going to be in that conversation. I think he's a very good athlete, good tackler, good ball skills, and can play north and south.
We can talk more about this next week, Emory, when we do, your top 10 group of 5 prospects. But do you feel like there's less than there used to be because of the portal and guys transferring to the Power 4 schools?
Yeah, I really do. I do feel like because these guys are leaving where they're going and try to, now we got to focus on, okay, who's the Izavion Millers of the G5 roster, Power 5 roster, because this would have been a G5 starter.
Yeah, it's man, I can tell you stories. I'll tell you stories next week. Some of the money that these guys are getting to go to Power 4 schools, some of them not even to start, just to go there and be depth, and they're getting a couple $100,000. I don't blame them one iota. Check him out on social at FBall Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. You can always follow all the shows on social at Ross Tucker Pod. That's how you get the best clips of each show. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.